in this video, I'm going to explain how and show how in code in JavaScript you can use the model properties to access the Project Insight REST API endpoint and basically customize which values and properties you'd like to select when making a REST call. So what you're seeing here in this screen is a Kanban board. It's one of our status boards for a sprint where all these cards are come out for the cards that are in the sprint, and the user can, toggle them and move them from left to right. And what you'll see when I reload this page is that it's loaded from the REST API endpoint to get these cards for all the tasks that are on the sprint that need to have the status changed. And so I'm going to switch screens here. You'll see here in the code, we have some JavaScript here. We actually have our own REST client that we use to access this, but this could be curl or any other jQuery REST client. And down here, you'll see here we have a REST client object, and here's our get call with the URL. And when we get the data, when the URL is called and we get the data, we do all of our Kanban board stuff down here. But I'm going to really show you here is how to choose which properties you want to output. And what you'll do is you can make an object for your model properties, and then the model properties has an array on it called model property lists, and each list defines which properties you want to have come out in your code. So for this particular display, the Kanban board, we need this, the task ID, we need the task item number and full and name together. That's really like the name we show. We have this special property that puts the name and the number together based on your user preferences. The start date of the task, the end date of the task, what the percent complete type, that's the status, when the percent complete was last updated, what order is it in the sprint. Here we go. This is important. Who the task owner is. That's an object. That's a user object. The actual hours and the work hours, and then the project, which is another object. And both these objects have their own set of properties. And you can see what all these properties are, by the way, by looking at our model references. So you would normally look at the model references to get these. But what you'll do is you'll make a task properties object. You can tell us what type it is. This is for any kind of task, because I'm getting a list of tasks from the task endpoint for sprints. And here are the properties I want. So object type is one property on that object, and then another property is a string, which is a comma-separated list of all the properties I want. If I wanted to add another property on here, like the billable hours, I could say billable hours. I just put it in the middle. It can go anywhere in here. There's no preference for the order. You could just put it at the end, or you could put it anywhere in here, just a comma separated list. And then what you'll do is you'll take that task properties object and add it to your array. And then and I have two other objects I want to specify what properties I want. For the object of a user, I want the ID, the name, and then what their avatar is. And same thing here, and then I'll add that to my list of model properties. And then finally, I want to get the project, and I'd like to get the ID, and then the same thing, the item number, full, and name preference. That would be like project number 123-name. Some companies just want the name to show. Some people want the number and the name to show. That's why we have this special property. And I'll take my third object property definition and put it on this model properties. And I've got an outer object with an array of objects on it. And I'm gonna build my URL to get the tasks for a sprint. So I'm going to call the task sprint endpoint with the GUID or the ID of the sprint. And then I'm going to add that parameter on here. This is really important. This question mark and model properties equal. And I'm going to stringify that model properties here and URI encode it. And what that tells our REST API endpoint is it's going to return JSON with just these fields on it, with just these properties for these objects and names. And that makes your query really, really tight. If you don't specify model properties, then you still get objects back, but you just get the default fields, which are defined in our documentation as well. But this is, in this case, I know that some of the fields I want were not on the default list. So when we coded it, we decided to just code what fields we care about. And so the JSON will come out only with these fields, even though there's really many, many other fields you could pull for a task. This is how you use the model properties, using an object and using JSON to do it. There's another way to send model properties in as just a specially codified string, and that's covered in a different video. But this is the formal and the most clear way to pass in what you model properties when you're building a REST API endpoint. And the result of that is I'll switch back. Here are those cards. Here's my work hours. Here's my actual hours. This is the project name, item number and name full for the project. This is the item number and name full for the task. The percent complete is used to know what the work status type is used to put it in the right column in the Kanban board. So you can do all of the same stuff with your own programs. And just one of the other things about our tool is you can put your own JavaScript in any of these forms, and you can use the same tools as we were using here, as I just showed you there. So hopefully that explains this feature some more. There's more documentation on this as well.